Thank you, Chris. Good morning. In early 2014, my life probably looked pretty good from the outside. I was married with a 2-year-old son and a baby girl, running 2 small businesses here in Oxford with my husband. I'd been raised in a loving home where my parents took us to church religiously, but busyness, the fatigue of new motherhood, and a host of other excuses had taken me away from a life of closeness with God and community in the church. I was completely drained, isolated, and afraid, but assumed that was just part of my phase of life. On July 13th, 2014, I needed to go to Walmart to get groceries, and I took my 8-month-old daughter, Annabelle, with me. I kept Annabelle in her infant car seat carrier while we shopped, and I happened to keep her buckled in. I did my shopping and exited the store, along with Annabelle in her car seat, down in my shopping cart. I proceeded across the crosswalk, then through an empty handicap spot. I noticed a car coming down the lane pretty fast, but didn't think anything of it until it sharply turned into the handicap spot I was walking through. Statements later revealed that the driver, upon seeing me, tried to hit his brake, but mistakenly, he hit his accelerator. His car lurched toward me and slammed my right leg between his bumper and the concrete bolster holding the handicap sign. My shopping cart and the car seat with my baby went flying 10 feet in front of me. I was trapped, feeling hot blood rush down my crushed leg, and in what felt like a very long nightmare, I screamed, my baby, somebody get my baby." Things moved quickly, and despite all the commotion, God gave me a sense of peace as the paramedics arrived. Annabelle would go to the ER, where they determined she miraculously had no injuries, thanks to her car seat. Meanwhile, I was airlifted to Regional 1 Trauma Hospital in Memphis, commonly referred to as the Med, and I was rushed into emergency surgery. 10 hours later, I woke up on a ventilator in the ICU. I could tell you about all the surgeries on my leg, but we'd be here a while since I had around 30 surgeries across 2 years. Or about the 6 different hospital units I stayed in over 4.5 months, or the painful procedures and the shots and stitches and staples and wound care and infections, but I won't. I will tell you that my leg was barely there. You see, most of my soft tissues and some of my bone were gone. So for the first 10 days, there was a very strong likelihood that I was going to lose my leg. Will and I were beginning to accept that an amputation was the right choice. But on day 10, after another surgery, doctors told us that there was a chance I could keep my leg. It was a longer and very, very uncertain path, but it's the one that we chose. During my long, difficult days in the hospital, I felt God's presence. I couldn't get out of bed without the help of 2 nurses. I hurt. I missed my family. But the faith my parents gifted me as a child gave me the hope to weather my storm. It took me over 30 years to realize what a gift my faith was and to thank my mother for taking me to church. I prayed and meditated on Scripture a lot during that time. The verse that spoke to me the most was Proverbs 17:22. "A cheerful heart is good medicine, but a crushed spirit dries up the bones." This truth encouraged me to remain joyful instead of resenting my circumstances. I also began praying Psalm 91 for protection over my family when I was away from them, after I read that it was called the soldier's psalm, that many soldiers prayed for protection during battle. While I couldn't see to my kids' safety myself from a hospital room, I learned to trust God with their safety. After 3.5 months at the Med, I was transferred to Baptist Hospital here in Oxford. A month of strenuous physical therapy later, I came home. A familiar yet strangely foreign place. Home now saddened me because I couldn't function normally. I was in a wheelchair and I had about 15 external pins holding my leg in place. We had a long road ahead of healing and waiting to see if my tibia bone would in fact grow back together so I could keep my leg. Not only did I require around-the-clock care, but my young children did too. My husband was struggling to keep everything afloat at work and care for us too. But through it all, God gifted me the awareness that one day this trial would end. And with or without my right leg, we would move on with our lives. In October 2015, 15 months after my accident, my orthopedic surgeon determined my leg was healing well enough to remove the external pins and put me in a boot cast. In February 2016, I took off the boot cast and was able to begin driving again. And that's when my life started to take on this new normal that we now know. A normal that's infused with gratitude for God's healing. A normal that's beautiful in its limits because everything was shattered. Not just a leg, but the life of a person, of a family. A normal that recognizes God's gifts by finding joy and gratitude in the mundane. Paul David Tripp writes that the DNA of joy is gratitude. It's so true. Gratitude I experienced by being able to drive my kids to school because once upon a time, I couldn't. Gratitude experienced in spraying OxyClean on my son's muddy pants because it means I can take care of my son who's capable of playing with his friends. Gratitude experienced teaching my daughter's Sunday school class because I can share our faith with children. Gratitude for the presence of God that's the gift of Jesus, Emmanuel, God with us. These gifts of joy, of gratitude, and of perspective are only possible through Jesus' work in my life.